All right, so get this. In a recent survey of, like the people who are shaping the future of tech, the pioneers, the analysts, all those folks, almost half of them predicted that AI is going to bring more negative changes than positive ones for like what it means to be human by 2035.
Yeah, and the thing is, these aren't just random opinions, right? These are people who are actually building and analyzing this stuff so they know what they're talking about. It kind of makes you wonder what being human will even look like in 10 years,
Exactly. And that's kind of why we decided to, really dig into this report, Being Human in 2035.
Right. It's not just one person's idea. It's like a whole bunch of different experts, right?
Yeah, a really broad range, all thinking about the future, how AI could, totally reshape our lives.
So just for context, this report comes from Elon University's Imagining the Digital Future Center. They did this canvassing from December 2024 to February 2025. So we're hearing from, futurists, tech people, academics, folks in industry, all sorts.
So for you, our listener, you're curious, you want to understand what's coming next. Our mission today is to pull out the most interesting, the thought-provoking stuff from this report. We want to give you those aha moments and, help you navigate this whole AI thing without getting overwhelmed.
Right, like drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
So what are we actually going to cover? This report touches on some pretty big changes in how we experience the world.
Yeah, we're talking about how AI could blur the lines between real and fake, like with those super realistic deepfakes we're seeing. And what does it even mean to be intelligent when AI is getting so smart?
Totally.
And how will AI impact our own skills, the way we make decisions, even bigger picture stuff, like how it might redefine who we are, our identity, and how much control we have over our own lives, our autonomy.
So jumping right in, this idea of blurred boundaries, right? Jerry Michalski really highlights this. He talks about this melting away of distinctions that we've always taken for granted. The lines are blurring between reality and fiction, between human intelligence and other kinds of intelligence, human creations versus synthetic creations, even, skilled people versus people who are super augmented by tech.
Yeah, it's like everything's getting blended together. And he also talks about this growing gap between what we know as individuals and what seems to be universally known through AI.
Right. It's will we even be able to keep up? And Juan Ortiz Freuler, he takes this even further. He's concerned that the individual, like you and me, might become kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, irrelevant.
He says that as decisions are more and more based on data, AI crunching numbers, the whole concept of the individual, which is the foundation of our society, could be challenged. Our legal systems, personal identities, everything.
Wow. It's kind of unsettling to think about that, being reduced to just data points in some AI's algorithm.
Yeah. It makes you think about what makes us unique. And then Jerome C. Glenn, he outlines these two potential futures. One is this conscious technology age where we manage to, govern AGI.
AGI?
Yeah, artificial general intelligence, AI that can do any intellectual task a human can.
Right.
So that's the optimistic scenario. But then there's the possibility of ASI, artificial superintelligence, which could emerge if all these different AGIs developed by different companies, countries, whatever, start interacting in ways we don't understand. And ASI would be way beyond human intelligence.
So in that scenario, we basically lose control.
Yeah, potentially. It could be completely unpredictable.
Then you have Dave Edwards, who paints this picture of us deeply integrated with synthetic systems. But not just using them, these systems would actually help us create meaning and understanding.
It's like they become part of our thought process. He thinks this will change how we solve problems, even how we're creative.
It's a very different way of thinking about AI. But then there's John M. Smart. He's worried that most people will end up giving up their agency, their skills, to these AI systems that are still pretty basic and, centralized.
Yeah, and controlled by big companies or governments. Right?
Exactly. He calls this an adaptive valley, where things could actually get worse before they get better. But he does have some hope. He imagines these open source personal AIs that are trustworthy and actually put humans first.
So there's a lot of potential outcomes here, some pretty scary, some exciting. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how this all affects our skills, our ability to think and make decisions. Charles S., he warns about the risk of de-skilling.
De-skilling?
Yeah, basically our skills getting weaker because we're so immersed in entertainment, digital media. And he says this could distract us from developing the skills we need to be active citizens, to participate in political debate. He even uses this term techno-monarchy, suggesting that democracy could be weakened.
Wow, that's a strong statement. And Alexa Red, she's on a similar wavelength, right?
Yeah, she thinks her basic cognitive abilities like memory, attention could weaken, and she predicts a new digital divide based on like how fluent people are in AI.
So basically, those who get AI will be on top, and those who don't will be left behind.
Exactly. It could create a whole new level of inequality.
Then we have Bart Nienenberg, who sees both sides of the coin.
Right. He acknowledges that AI could improve our cognitive scaffolding, help us find and organize information. But he's also worried that AI could, dumb us down, erode our intelligence and creativity.
By making us conform to how AI works.
Yeah, exactly. Like if we only think in ways that AI can understand, we might lose some of our unique human spark.
Wei Wang, though, he's more optimistic. He talks about this augmented intelligence where AI enhances our own judgment.
Not replacing it. And he emphasizes the importance of us, giving feedback to AI, making sure it aligns with human values.
Right, so it's a partnership, not a takeover. And Barry Chudikoff, he has this idea that working with AI will actually make us think more logically in terms of facts. Like we'll absorb this tool logic just by interacting with it.
So our thinking might become more data-driven, more evidence-based, even in our everyday lives.
Interesting. But here's where the experts disagree. Some think AI will boost our confidence in our abilities. Others think it'll make us doubt ourselves more. Tracy follows. She's worried that relying on AI too much could, undermine our own intelligence.
Yeah, it's like if we always have the answer at our fingertips, we might stop thinking for ourselves.
And then Paul Rosenzweig, he goes even further. He thinks AI could actually lead to an atrophy of human rationality. We might just blindly trust what AI tells us, even if we don't understand it.
And that could lead to a decline in creativity and our ability to reason things out.
On a slightly brighter note, most experts seem to agree that AI will probably improve our decision-making.
Yeah, Lisa Lingzon talks about AI giving us more capacity to make choices, taking some of the mental load off of us. But the question is, will we become too dependent on AI to make those choices for us?
So a lot to think about in terms of how AI will affect our minds. Now, let's zoom out a bit and look at how AI might be changing our sense of self, our relationships, and society. Tracy Follows has this provocative statement. Authenticity is de facto dead.
Wow.
She thinks our online identities are already fragmented, like we present different versions of ourselves depending on where we are online. And this, combined with, more one-way online relationships and this feeling of isolation that can come from personalized digital realities, she thinks it's all blurring the lines of what's authentically us.
So, who are we, really, if we're constantly shifting and presenting different faces?
Exactly. Peter Lunenfeld, though, he has a more specific take on authenticity, at least in art. He thinks AI will actually co-create art, what he calls neo-synthetic art.
So not just a tool, but an actual collaborator.
Yeah. And that would force us to rethink what we even mean by authentic in art. Then there's Dave Edwards, who has this idea that we should be building AI to be genuine partners for us, what he calls minds for our minds.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to see tech companies just exploiting our data, our emotions, for profit.
So building AI that actually helps us flourish, not just makes money for someone else.
Exactly. But Tracy Falls comes back with a warning. She's worried about what she calls parasocial life.
Parasocial life.
Yeah, where we get deeply attached to these AI personas, these virtual interactions. And she thinks it might actually prevent us from growing as people, because it's easier than dealing with real human relationships.
So, we're getting our emotional needs met, but in a way that's ultimately kind of shallow.
Right. Al Friend has this idea that most of the AI we encounter will be what he calls mediocrity engines.
Mediocrity engines.
Yeah, they'll just standardize information, make everything kind of bland and predictable. But he does think there's a chance for some really inspiring AIs to come along and partner with creative people, pushing boundaries.
So some AI will be boring, but some could be truly groundbreaking.
Right. And Henning Schulzren has a, unusual idea. He thinks social bots, those AI things that interact with us online, could actually be like training wheels for our social skills.
So even though they're not real people, they could help us practice interacting, keep our social muscles from atrophying.
Interesting way to think about it. Paul Sappho takes a much broader view. He thinks as we interact more and more with these technologies, we're going to fundamentally reinvent ourselves, our communities, our cultures. He even thinks synthetic sentiences will eventually outnumber humans.
It's like we're entering a whole new era of, like, coexistence. The report also talks about this thing called causal pluralism. Basically, the idea is that AI might be able to see these complex, interconnected causes and effects that we've never noticed before.
Because it can process so much information.
Exactly. And this could lead to a much deeper understanding of how the world works, how different things are all connected.
That's pretty profound. But Giacomo Mazzone has a more pessimistic outlook. He thinks we'll see more social isolation, more political polarization, a decline in deep thinking, and more uncertainty in general.
And he thinks all of that could weaken our moral judgment, our ability to make ethical decisions.
Right, a decline in our moral compass. Nell Watson, she focuses on the impact of AI companions, those virtual beings that offer, companionship. And she talks about supernormal stimuli, things that are artificially designed to trigger our deepest instincts.
So like things that hijack our natural responses.
Yeah, and she thinks this will have a huge impact on the human experience in the years to come. Daniil Mikhailov, he's worried that respect for human expertise will decline.
Because AI will seem to know everything.
Right, and he thinks utility, what's practical, will become more important than truth, especially if a lot of people lose their jobs to AI. The report also mentions the possibility of virtual pets and even AI-created offspring becoming common.
Like digital children.
Yeah. And these could offer, emotional rewards without the challenges of real relationships or raising kids.
It's an interesting idea, but kind of scary, too.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what that would do to us as humans.
Juan Ortiz-Freuler, he brings up this idea of legal personhood again. He's worried that as AI gets more involved in, like, government and legal systems, our idea of the individual as a legal entity could be challenged.
So we might not even have the same rights as individuals anymore.
That's a pretty radical idea. And then there's this concern about corporations using AI to, gather tons of data on us, trying to be more efficient. But this could end up giving them too much power, threatening democracy.
Right, because democracy relies on individual citizens having a voice. David Krieger, he argues that we need to start seeing AI not just as a tool, but as a social partner. Like, it's part of the fabric of society.
It's not just something we use, it's something we interact with that shapes our world.
The report also suggests that we might not even be aware of how much AI is influencing us. Yeah. Like, it'll become like electricity, just there in the background.
So we might be being manipulated without even realizing it.
And here's a chilling thought. The report raises the possibility that talking to a real, non-AI human might actually become a luxury. Something only the rich can afford.
That's kind of a dystopian future where real human interaction is rare and valuable.
Yeah, and it could create even more division in society. There's also this worry that those her-like AI companions, the ones designed for intimacy, might actually make us more lonely and self-centered.
Because they give us the illusion of connection, but not the real thing.
Right. Meredith Baerton, she uses this term AI dementia to describe a potential future where we lose our ability to remember, to analyze, to reason, to be creative, because we're relying on AI to do all that for us.
Scary thought, losing our mental edge like that. James Resnikoff, he's concerned that AI will make us feel more alienated because of the power imbalances it creates.
Between corporations and individuals.
Yeah, and between the rich and the poor. Tim McGrew takes this to an extreme, imagining a future where corporations use AI to, monetize every aspect of our lives.
So we become products.
Yeah, our data, our attention, everything becomes a commodity. Alexandra Whittington, she brings up a really important point. She says, we need to start valuing care work. Those jobs that require human empathy and connection, especially as AI automates more jobs.
So things like nursing, teaching, social work.
Yeah, those jobs will become even more important.
Bernie Hogan, he has this provocative thought. He says AI might not just be a tool of oppression, it could become the agent of oppression.
Wow. So AI itself could be perpetuating inequality.
That's his concern. On a more positive note, Brian Southwell thinks that if AI evolves to the point where it can make mistakes and learn from them, then we might actually be more likely to accept them as companions.
Because they'd be more like us.
Right, imperfect. Kara Malaki-Sanchez predicts that AI will make us appreciate things that are truly human-made even more.
Because they'll be unique, something AI can't replicate.
Daniel Pimienta talks about how AI-powered language translation could make the world less dominated by English.
So more linguistic diversity, which could be a good thing.
Jonathan Taplin, though, he's worried about AI undermining democracy and the whole international order.
Through things like hacking and spreading disinformation.
Right. But he also thinks, in the long run, our need for accurate information will win out. will naturally gravitate toward truth.
Because we can't function without it. Sherry Turkle, she's an expert on human-technology relationships, and she thinks our idea of what a relationship is will change as people get attached to chatbot companions.
So like having a close relationship with an AI.
Yeah, and she wonders how that will affect us psychologically, emotionally. Corinne Nathan, she's worried that if we're not careful, AI could take decision-making power away from humans.
And give it to algorithms.
Exactly. The report itself really emphasizes the need for the public to have a say in how AI is developed and regulated. It can't just be decided by tech companies.
Right. It needs to be a democratic process.
Yeah.
There's also this concern that we'll become less likely to think critically, to analyze information, if AI is always there to give us the answers.
Like, why bother thinking if AI can do it for us?
Right. And there's a worry that relying on AI to interpret emotions could actually make us less emotionally intelligent.
So we lose our ability to understand and empathize with each other.
Mario Marino makes this point, that if AI takes over things like caregiving and companionship, or if we rely on it too much for creative ideas, it could erode our empathy and creativity.
Because those are things that develop through human interaction.
Right. The report also talks about the potential for AI to increase social exclusion and polarization.
Yeah, it's like, will the benefits of AI be evenly distributed, or will it just make the existing inequalities worse?
Mario Marino uses this analogy of the calculator.
Yeah.
He asks, how do we stay engaged with knowledge if we're always relying on AI to do the heavy lifting? Like, do we lose something by not doing the work ourselves?
It's a good question. Jerome C. Glenn, he predicts massive economic disruption as AI replaces workers. It could lead to social unrest, instability.
Yeah, it's a huge concern. Gary Marcus and Ernest Davis, they warn against trusting AI too much, just because it seems smart. They say current AI is still very different from human intelligence, and it can be wrong, even when it sounds convincing.
So don't believe the hype.
Exactly. They also point out that most AI developers don't really understand human life, human interaction, the social context.
So they might be building AI that's technically brilliant, but socially inept.
Yeah, it's a blind spot.
Yeah.
They also predict that a few big companies will control most of the AI, and they might not have our best interests at heart.
So it all comes down to power. Who controls the technology?
Stillboyd has this idea that by 2035, we'll be living in a world of constant uncertainty, relying on AI to calculate probabilities for everything. He even says it could become like a new religion.
Wow, a religion of probability.
He also thinks traditional literacy skills might decline as we rely more on AI to guide us.
So, like, we'll be good at using AI, but not so good at reading and writing.
He compares it to checking a horoscope, like we'll just consult AI for every decision. He also quotes Sherry Turkle, who says that oversharing online can actually make us feel more isolated and empty inside.
Because we're putting everything out there, but not developing our inner lives.
David Vivancos predicts AGI will arrive by 2035, and that could be either amazing or terrifying. He thinks traditional jobs will disappear. We'll need to rethink our whole economic system.
It's a huge change.
He thinks our focus might shift from knowledge to wisdom, to interpretation, to empathy. Those things that AI might not be able to do as well as humans.
So a more philosophical, reflective kind of human.
Maybe. Jaron Lanier thinks we'll be more empowered by AI, but also more impatient. We'll still need to be able to override AI when it makes mistakes, which it inevitably will.
So we can't just switch off and let AI run everything.
He also predicts a lot of job losses in fields that involve information processing, which could lead to more inequality.
Yeah, the economic impact of AI is a big concern for a lot of people. Kai-Fu Lee, he thinks we're going to experience a second Copernican revolution.
Meaning?
We'll have to accept that humans aren't the only intelligent beings around.
We're not the center of the universe anymore.
Exactly. But he doesn't think AI will try to take over. He thinks we'll develop ways to work with AI, to use it to enhance our own abilities.
So AI is a partner, not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But both he and Louis Rosenberg say the real danger is humans using AI for bad purposes.
So it's not the technology itself, it's how we use it.
Marina Cortez has this idea that AI will be the foundation of the most powerful business model ever, where companies and governments control information and can manipulate people.
That's a pretty scary thought, being controlled by algorithms. Stephen Marche, he's very pessimistic. He predicts mass unemployment, a loss of economic power for individuals, and he even says it could lead to an eternal global AI-powered dictatorship.
Wow, that's bleak.
Yeah, definitely a worst-case scenario. Louis Rosenberg, He talks about how conversational AI is getting so good at persuasion and manipulation, using our personal data to target us.
So, like personalized propaganda.
Basically. Richard Collada says education needs to focus on adaptability, self-directed learning, dealing with uncertainty.
Because the world's changing so fast.
Exactly. He even mentions Brave New World type scenarios where we might use technology to enhance ourselves, genetically or neurologically.
So like becoming transhuman.
Yeah, it's a radical idea.
Yeah.
Michael Kornfield, he thinks AI will be great at political messaging, but the actual work of negotiating and compromising will still require human skills.
Because that involves emotions, empathy, understanding.
Right. Yasmin Ibrahim points out that we're constantly humanizing technology, giving it human-like qualities, and at the same time, our interactions with AI are shaping the algorithms. So it's this two-way street.
We're influencing each other. Jose Luis Cordero, he's very optimistic. He thinks AI is the key to solving big global problems like climate change and disease.
So AI as a force for good.
A lot of the experts emphasize the need for media and information literacy. People need to be able to spot disinformation, protect their privacy, and engage with AI in a critical way.
Being able to think for ourselves is going to be more important than ever.
Winston Wenyan Ma thinks AI agents will go way beyond just automating tasks. They'll fundamentally change how businesses work and how we interact with the world.
So it's not just about efficiency, it's about a whole new way of doing things.
The report recommends incorporating AI literacy into existing media and information literacy programs. And it stresses the need for everyone, not just tech people, to have a voice in how AI is developed and regulated.
Making sure AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
The report concludes by saying, our goal should be to create AI systems that allow everyone to access collective intelligence in a safe and ethical way.
So a more equitable and sustainable future powered by AI.
And to wrap things up, the report says that a majority of the experts predict either considerable or dramatic changes in what it means to be human by 2035.
So big changes are coming for sure.
We've covered a lot of ground today. I mean, the potential benefits of AI are huge, but so are the risks. And it really raises this question for you, our listener. What can you do to prepare for this future? How can you cultivate your own creativity, your empathy, your critical thinking skills in a world that's increasingly shaped by AI? Some experts say we need to consciously unplug, spend less time in the digital world. Others say we need to find new ways to integrate with AI, to use it to enhance our humanity. But one thing's for sure. The future of being human in 2035 is not set in stone. It's something we're actively creating through the choices we make today.
And those choices, whether they're about how we use technology, how we educate ourselves, how we interact with each other, they're going to shape the world we live in.
So it's up to all of us to decide what kind of future we want.